I challenge you to a duel.
It's the only argument I need!
I don't want to talk to you no more, you...
You got a lot of nerve.
Soon you will know what it is like to be defeated.
Stop defending him, Sean!
Alright, let's go.
I'm ready for all today. You are the day. All the way.
Hey Sleepers, and welcome back to the Sleeper Wire Great Debate Show, where we do a quick debate between two players. I'm your host, Professor Chris, and with me today, Prophet Hoos. What's going on today, man?
Pretty pumped. Ka-chow! I felt that was appropriate since Cars 3 is coming out on Friday. I'm trying to take my son to it.
Are you?
I'm pumped, man. I am pumped about the great debates. We're back.
I know we are.
Exciting.
We are, and it's it was fun doing the first one with Nick, but you and I did most of them together last year, so it'll be good to have it the whole great debate team back together.
Yes. I'm looking forward to this one. This is going to be a good one.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one. So last week Nick and I debated Amari Cooper versus Doug Baldwin. Today Hoos and I are doing two wide receiver ones here. AJ Green versus Jordy Nelson. And before we jump into the debate, I'll go ahead and let you know I've got AJ Green, Hoos has Jordy Nelson. What we're doing here, in case you guys didn't listen last season or you missed the first one this year, is that we're doing an actual debate style argument. So it's not going to be us sitting here going back and forth and back and forth. No, it's not like that. It's a structured debate. So Hoos is going to get started. He's going to go 2.5 minutes for Jordy Nelson. Then I get 1.5 minutes to rebut. Then I get 2.5 minutes for AJ Green. He gets 1.5 minutes to rebut. And then we finish it up with final thoughts on our own players. And then that's it. That's the show. So it's a short show. Just so you guys know what you were getting into here, but they are a lot of fun to listen to. They're a lot of fun to do, so I hope you guys enjoy it. One other thing before we jump in is that I want to let you know that the purpose of these is not for, us to win the debate. That's not what we're trying to do. Hoos, what are we trying to do here?
Trying to help these guys out. Just inform them a little bit better, just in case they don't know. I mean, obviously, these two guys are studs, obviously. But we're going to give you some pros. You're going to give me some cons from Jordy, and I'm going to try to do the same. It's tough because they're two number ones.
Yeah.
We're going to try our best.
Yeah.
We both really like these guys, obviously.
Yeah, and we're presenting arguments for and against these guys to help you guys make a better decision on who to draft.
Correct.
All right. So let's go ahead and jump in. Hoos is going to kick us off. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
All right. 2.5 minutes about Jordy Nelson. Go.
All right, man. Jordy Nelson. What can I say about the guy? I mean, the numbers speak for himself. He actually finished number one in standard last year. That's insane considering the guy didn't really kind of look like himself at some point. Had movement into the slot. He was number 2 in PPR. After the Packers, they struggled a little bit in 2015. Obviously he wasn't there. He had that ACL. That was to be expected. He came back from 1 year from that surgery. And most modern players will tell you that it takes about 2 years for them to get fully healthy. But that didn't stop this guy at all. He led the league in touchdowns. He had 14 of them. He had 96 catches, 1,257 yards. Like I said, number 1 in standard, 2 in PPR. He had 5 games well over 100 yards, 3 games posting 2 touchdowns, and 2 of those games was against the Seattle, and once against Minnesota. So 2 tough defenses. So when all else is going wrong, guess who Aaron Rodgers is going to look to? Jordy Nelson. He's right there. He's still going to be there. Rodgers out there throwing 40 touchdowns, and guess who's going to be the benefactor? Jordy. He's the red zone threat. Like I said, he finished top 3 last year, 2 to be exact. 2014, we know he missed 2015, but in 2014, Rodgers threw 38 touchdowns. Jordy had 151 targets, finished with 229 points in a standard, over 300 in a PPR. And again, that put him number 2 again. So I mean, this guy is consistently putting up these numbers for you, And he actually set a franchise record, 519 yards back in 2014. 2013, sure, let's go there. Rodgers actually only threw for 17 touchdowns, got banged up that year. Jordy had 8 touchdowns, 1,300 yards, 126 targets, 85 receptions. He finished 11th standard and about 52 targets less than AJ. AJ did finish ahead of him that year. Only had 41 points more, though. Back in 2012, same hamstring issues, missed 4 games. But still, the guy was stellar. You know, the guy came out and put up another career year, basically. 2011, you can go back to a career year. Oh man, they got to get quicker with the wordage, I guess.
Yeah, we had these timed basically perfectly last year, but you know, not doing these for 6 months. We got
we were well-oiled machines.
Yeah. So we got to knock off that rust.
Yeah, stretch.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and jump into this. Hoos, you got a stopwatch ready?
Yes, I do.
All right,
and,
let's go.
Let me know when you're ready.
We're good.
Go.
All right, so what can I say that's bad about Jordy Nelson? Honestly, nothing. The guy's an absolute stud. There's nothing I don't like about him or what he's done. So I'm going to talk about really his situation. First off, Jordy Nelson's heading into his age 32 season. He's reaching that proverbial age cliff that all NFL players get to at some point. I'm not saying it's going to happen this year. I mean, the guy's coming off the second best season of his career, and that's after missing a year to an ACL tear. It's hard to argue with 97 catches for 1,257 yards and 14 touchdowns. But still, he did tear that ACL at age 30. He obviously came back from it last year, but an ACL tear at that age has to take a little bit of time off the end of a career. I did a little research, and I just picked 3 wide receivers who I know played well into their later years. So 3 recent 32-year-olds, and these are the first 3 guys that I looked up last season. Brandon Marshall, monster season back in 2015, only 59 catches for 788 and 3 touchdowns after having 109 for 1502 and 14. Anquan Bolden in 2012, in his age 32, only 65 for 921 and 4. Reggie Wayne back in his 2011 season, 75 for 960 and 4. So these guys who have certainly been some of the game's best have dropped off during their age 32 season, and that could happen to Jordy Nelson as well.
Yeah.
That's really all I could say that was bad against Jordy
That
Nelson.
was actually really sweet of you. You said that was really sweet. Small guy, Chris.
Oh, well, I tried to give you a leg up.
No, well, I appreciate that.
All right, so there you got our arguments for and against Jordy Nelson. We're going to go ahead and move into AJ Green. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. AJ Green. There's a lot of good things to say about this guy. First, I'll mention that he had the longest active streak of 1,000-plus receiving yard seasons in the NFL, eclipsing that mark every year of his first 5 seasons. He even got more than 1,000 yards in the year that he missed 3 games, and he almost got there last season, going off for 66 catches for 964 yards, and that was only in 10 games. 964 yards in only 10 games. That means he averaged 96 yards per game. That would have been a career high if he'd kept that for 16 full games. That was good for second place for receiving yards per game last season, after only Julio Jones. And remember that Julio's receiving yards per game are going to be a little inflated after that 300-yard game. AJ Green's, he's averaged more than 80 yards per game in the last 5 seasons. The only season he didn't average more than 80 yards was his rookie year, so we can sort of give him a little bit of a break on that. He's a true downfield deep threat, very impressive high jump. He's 6'4", so he can outjump everybody. As we've seen, just watching highlight plays of AJ Green, he can just go up and over everybody to get any pass. He's a big weapon for Andy Dalton close to the red zone. Looking at his career, 31 of his 49 touchdowns were inside of 25 yards. He had 9 red zone targets last season and caught 7 of them for 2 touchdowns. But I feel like I can't really use the red zone targets as an argument against Jordy Nelson. That's why I didn't mention it, because he did lead the lead in red zone targets. But, he had a lot. He had 29.
Yeah.
But AJ Green did get a fair amount. He caught 7 of his 9. In 2015, he split a lot of targets between Mohamed Sanu, Marvin Jones, and Tyler Eifert. And even then, even with Andy Dalton spreading the ball around, he still caught 86 passes for 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns. All those guys are gone. That's a lot of targets that need to be replaced, and with AJ Green only playing 10 games last year, they weren't really replaced. Now they've got John Ross in there to sort of, be the speedster on the opposite side of AJ Green. Tyler Boyd's going to be a year older. But those guys aren't really a threat to take anything away from AJ Green, because AJ Green has done it when it's only been himself. Look at when he was the only guy back in 2012. He caught 97 balls for 1,350 and 11 touchdowns when he was the only target that Andy Dalton had to throw to.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I can't really say much bad about AJ Green either. I mean, other than he's not Jordy Nelson. I mean, he's never finished number 1, number 2. The top he's been at number 4, which is great, obviously. But we're talking about number 1s. We're talking about that guy that's either going to get you to the promised land, both should help you. But still, I mean, the biggest glaring weakness here is clearly the quarterback. I mean, Dalton's thrown for over 30 touchdowns just once in his career. Meanwhile, Rodgers does that every year, and he's thrown for over 40 touchdowns twice. So I mean, you're looking at a guy who's going to be catching most of the, like you just said, Jordy Nelson's leading in the red zone threat, in the red zones, and AJ, yes, AJ, he's a fine guy, but I mean that would be my biggest knock on him. You just look at AJ, Andy Dalton, and then you look at Tyler Eifert. He's going to be stealing touchdowns from him. I mean, granted, we didn't see that come into fruition completely because obviously AJ got injured, but other than that, I mean, if you could kind of see that it was some games where obviously he was stellar, but he missed what did he miss? He missed 6 games. And that really hurt him, and those touchdowns, he only had 4 touchdowns, granted, yes, he missed those six games, but you really wanted better numbers, and you expected his catch rate to be, his catch rate was about 66. Good. That's fine. Jordy's doing that every year. He even had years when he was putting up 70.
All right, guys, so you got our arguments for and against both Jordy Nelson and AJ Green. We're going to go ahead and move over to final thoughts. So let's get back to Jordy Nelson. Hoos, why don't you give me some of your final thoughts on Jordy Nelson? Sort of wrap up what you were saying about him.
All right. So, okay, the Packers, obviously, they had to move Jordy in the slot. That's going to help his career just extend over a little bit longer. We saw James Jones, what he was able to do when Jordy wasn't there. He was still a top 30 receiver, and Jordy's obviously clearly a better player than James Jones. But James, like I said, James Jones was one of those guys where you were like, oh, he's over the hill, he's old. But that wasn't really much of a concern. I'm not really worried about Jordy Nelson next year because he's turning 32. He's still got Rodgers there, and he's still going to be, like I said, manning that slot. He got 40% of his yards from there. And you could just look at consistency. Consistency, the guy is always a number 1 wide receiver. If he's healthy, he's always there. And like I said, he's finished twice. He's finished number 2 3 times. So I mean, you just look at that over, compare that to what AJ's done. I mean, and you just look at the quarterback play. I mean, clearly you have to love Jordy over AJ. You just gotta.
From my side of the debate, I don't think you gotta love Jordy over AJ.
Well,
no, I mean, like, what can you really say bad about these two guys? Honestly,
we tried.
Exactly,
tried.
we do, and that's the whole point. Is like we think of these guys as just like fantasy football gods who are just, these are bona fide studs, and they are. So it's really interesting to look and try to find little details that you can pick at about these guys, because you just don't hear about them very often. All right, so final thoughts on AJ Green. Going back to him, he's just a guy that defenses just can't stop him. Dalton knows to throw it up high for Green. AJ's not afraid to go up and get that ball. He's just always produced. He scores a lot of touchdowns. He averages 9 touchdowns per season, which is great. He's finishing in the top 5, barring injury and everything, which is where you're drafting him. So that's exactly what you wanted. Andy Dalton, he is actually a pretty solid quarterback, and he's developed a good chemistry with Green over the last 6 years. He trusts him. He looks his way almost every single time. Last year, I said, and we actually had AJ Green versus Dez Bryant before the season last year. So I was able to look back and see what I said. I said I believed that AJ Green would break 100 catches for the first time with close to 1,500 yards and 10-plus touchdowns. And he was certainly on pace to hit those first two marks through the 9.5 games because he got hurt in that 10th game. He was certainly on pace to break those. he's going into his age 29 season, which compared to Jordy's age 32, so Jordy's 3 years older. I feel like Jordy has to hit that age cliff sometime, and it's going to be sooner than AJ Green hits it. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this second Sleeper Wire Great Debate of 2017. Hoos, why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners where they can find us and support us?
Oh, you should know by now, but if you don't, shame on you. And you can go ahead and find us on the Sleeper Wire, www.sleeperwire.com. It's an amazing website. Steve's done a fantastic job on upgrading what's going on in there. You can find Chris's rankings, which is not really his ranking. It's our consensus rankings. So, give him a break if you don't agree with some of the stuff there. But yeah, you can also find us on Twitter, Sleeper Wire Show. You can find me, Prophet Hoos, on Twitter, or it's Hoos. I've been changing my name around. I got to stop doing that. It might be Hoos the Prophet, so just try that as well. I'm also on Instagram as Hoos the Prophet, and Professor Chris SW. That's his Instagram. He's also on Sleeper on Twitter as well as Professor Chris. I believe that is that right or no? Seymour
Sleeper Wire on Twitter. Yeah.
Yes.
I have 109 Instagram posts. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I've been trying to keep up with it. I feel like I've been doing a pretty good job so far.
And you can find us on the SleeperBot app, of course, the amazing app. We're on there as moderators, and Chris is an analyst on there. So if you have any questions or quandaries, you guys can go ahead and reach out to us. I'm on there as Prophet Who's. Chris, you're on there as
Professor Chris.
Professor Chris, yes. We're branding ourselves. So
yeah.
Remember these things. You gotta pardon my brain as well. It's Ramadan. I haven't eaten yet.
Yeah,
so.
Well, you're hungry. Yeah. And I am also Professor Chris on the Fantasy Life app.
All right, and as well, if you guys support the show, please go to our lovely website, and you can go ahead and go to the tab to support the show. And if you can donate anything you appreciate the donation. Right now, we're seeking some treatments for our good friend Rob. This is what we do the show for. He needs your help. He needs all of our help. And if you can, give anything you can, we appreciate if you support the show. Again, this is how this is what we do the show for, primarily. So again, you can go ahead to our webpage, and there is a tab there. You can go ahead. It'll bring you directly to his GoFundMe page. So you don't even have to go to GoFundMe ... Just go to sleeperwire.com. There's a tab right there to support Rob, support us. And yeah, we're going to be opening up a Pro-Am soon, so look out for that too. That's going to be another way you're going to be able to join the league and play with us, play with Rob, play with us, and some analysts.
That wraps it up for our Sleeper Wire Great Debate. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next time.
I'm ready for all today.